Imagine waking up one ordinary morning, not to an alarm that drags you out of sleep, but to sunlight slipping through the curtains. You reach for your phone out of habit, expecting the usual flood of messages, notifications, responsibilities. Instead, you open your banking app. You're not checking it with hope or fear, just curiosity. And you notice something subtle but powerful. The number has moved. While you were sleeping, while you were living, while you were not doing anything at all, your investments grew overnight, quietly, without permission, without effort, without asking for your time. At first, it feels like noise, market fluctuations, randomness. But then you compare it to yesterday, to the hours you spent commuting, to the meetings, to the mental energy you burned, and you realize something uncomfortable. Your money earned more in a few hours than you did in an entire day. Not enough to change your life yet, not enough to quit, but enough to change your perspective. Because for the first time, your income is no longer tied entirely to your presence, to your body, to your attention, to your exhaustion. There is a second engine now. Most people never feel this. They spend their lives with a single source of motion, labor. If they stop, the money stops. If they slow down, everything slows down. If they break, the system breaks. But there is another mechanism running in parallel. Ownership, capital, compounding. Two invisible lines are moving through your life. One represents what it costs you to exist. Food, shelter, safety, comfort, small pleasures, the baseline of being alive in the modern world. The other represents what your assets produce: interest, dividends, growth, the quiet accumulation of value that does not require your presence. In the beginning, the first line dominates. The second barely exists. A few dollars a month, pocket change, nothing that feels meaningful. But compounding is patient. It does not impress early. It does not rush. It simply repeats. And repetition, over time, becomes force. Year after year, that second line curves upward, slowly at first, almost invisibly, then with increasing confidence, until one day, without ceremony, it approaches the first. This is the moment most people never calculate, never visualize, never even name. The moment when your assets can fully carry your life. The moment when your need to sell time disappears. The moment when work becomes a choice instead of a condition. This is the crossover point. It is not a dream. It is not a philosophy. It is not a personality trait. It is arithmetic. You can move it closer by spending less. You can move it closer by investing more. You can move it closer by doing both. Every expense you reduce lowers the bar your future must clear. Every dollar you invest raises the engine that will carry you there. This is why two people with the same income can live in completely different futures. One builds optionality, the other builds dependency. What feels like comfort today can become obligation tomorrow. What feels like discipline today becomes freedom later. And something psychological happens as you approach this line, a quiet shift in identity. At first, investing feels like sacrifice. You are giving up experiences now for a vague promise later. The numbers are small, the progress is slow, the patience required feels unnatural. But as the portfolio grows, something changes. A 1% movement is no longer abstract. It is rent, it is groceries. It is a week of life. You begin to feel your money move, not intellectually, viscerally, and with that comes a new relationship to risk, to authority, to fear, to time. You start to realize that your job is no longer your only lifeline, that your future is no longer entirely hostage to a single employer, that your survival is no longer a daily negotiation. Freedom does not arrive suddenly. It arrives in layers. First, your investments can cover a bill, then a category, then most of your non-essential life, then almost everything. Each layer gives you more room to breathe, more ability to say no, more space to choose differently. There is even a stage before full independence, where your future is mathematically secured even if you stop pushing, where time itself becomes your ally, where the compounding you have already set in motion is enough. At that point, you are no longer racing, you are coasting, steering instead of struggling. The markets will rise, they will fall, crashes will come, corrections will hurt. This is not a smooth road, but volatility is not the enemy. Dependency is. The true risk is not seeing your balance fluctuate. The true risk is never building an engine that can run without you. Every financial choice you make is not just a transaction, it is a direction. You are either buying future freedom or you are selling it. You are either shortening the distance to the crossover or lengthening it. Money is not just purchasing power. It is stored time, stored choice, stored autonomy. And one day, if you stay consistent long enough, if you resist the urge to consume every raise, if you allow compounding to do its slow, quiet work, you will wake up on an ordinary morning and realize something extraordinary. Your life is no longer powered only by your effort. Your time is no longer fully for sale. Once you reach this stage, your decision-making starts to change in very practical ways. You stop evaluating purchases emotionally and start evaluating them numerically, not in a restrictive way, but in a clearer one. Instead of asking whether you can afford something, you ask how it affects your timeline. Does this expense move the crossover point closer, or does it push it further away? This shift matters because most financial decisions are not catastrophic on their own. They are incremental. The damage, or the progress comes from repetition. A single expensive purchase doesn't ruin your future, but a pattern of upgrading every time your income rises does. The crossover point exposes this pattern because it converts lifestyle choices into measurable outcomes. A higher monthly expense doesn't just cost you more today, it increases the size of the portfolio you need tomorrow. For example, every additional $1,000 in annual spending requires roughly $25,000 more invested capital to sustain it indefinitely. That relationship is fixed. It does not care about motivation, optimism, or income level. This is why people with high salaries can feel just as trapped as people with low ones. Their investment line grows, but their expense line grows with it. Progress cancels itself out. The practical solution is not extreme frugality. It is control. Control over fixed costs, control over recurring expenses, control over how much of each income increase is allowed to become permanent spending. This is also where investing becomes psychologically easier. Early on, investing feels like loss. Money leaves your account, and nothing visible comes back. Later, the relationship reverses. Your portfolio becomes a stabilizing force instead of a source of anxiety. Short-term market declines still happen, but they no longer feel threatening. You understand that volatility affects the timeline, not the destination. Historically, broad equity markets have recovered from every major decline given enough time. That does not eliminate risk, but it reframes it. The real danger is not temporary losses. It is never building sufficient ownership to reduce reliance on earned income. As investment income grows, dependence on work declines gradually, not suddenly. This creates optionality long before full financial independence. Covering one recurring bill with passive income reduces stress. Covering several creates flexibility. Covering most of your expenses changes how you negotiate, plan, and take risks. This is why the crossover point is better understood as a process rather than a single event. There is a long period where work is still necessary, but no longer dominant. During this phase, choices expand. You can tolerate lower-paying work that offers better conditions. You can refuse opportunities that conflict with your priorities. You can invest in skills or projects that do not pay immediately. These options exist because your financial system is no longer fragile. At the same time, expectations need to remain realistic. Markets do not move in straight lines. Returns are uneven. Progress accelerates later, not earlier. Most of the portfolio's growth happens in the final years before the crossover point, not the first one. This is a mathematical consequence of compounding, not a motivational concept. Understanding this prevents impatience. It also prevents overreaction during downturns. You stop interpreting volatility as failure and start seeing it as part of the process. Eventually, the numbers converge. Investment income meets or exceeds expenses. Work becomes optional by definition, not by feeling. That does not mean you stop working. It means you stop being required to. And that distinction matters, because at that point, time is no longer something you exchange for survival. It becomes a resource you allocate deliberately. The crossover point does not guarantee happiness. It does not solve personal problems. It does not remove uncertainty from life. What it does is remove a specific constraint, the need to earn money simply to continue existing. That constraint shapes almost every decision people make, often without realizing it. When it is gone, behavior changes naturally, not because of discipline, not because of motivation, but because the system no longer demands constant output. That is the real significance of the crossover point. Not wealth, but structural independence.